Good morning. Happy Sunday. We're going to start off with leaning on the everlasting arms.
staying home and being safe. I'm glad we have the technology to be able to do this. I know other churches are doing it different ways, and this is what we're doing right now. So when it gets posted, come on and look at it, and you'll be able to be here with us. It's always interesting to be in the sanctuary with just a couple of people. But when I look around, I see where you sit. It's like that thing on Facebook where the priest put pictures. I don't need pictures because I know where you sit. And even in the sermon, you might see me look at you or refer to where you would be. We thank you for the ones that have sent in their tithes and offerings. Know that you can do that online, or you can mail it in, 806 Jameson, 24013, 24013. Or you can drop it by and put it in the mail slot on the Jameson side door. We're going to try, emphasis try, because you know my technology skills are limited. We're going to try to do Facebook Live Bible study on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. So be watching for it. I'll let you know if it's really going to happen or not. And we're going to be looking at a book that I came across that says How to Deal with Hard and Stressful Times. And I thought that was just really appropriate. Would you pray with me? Loving God, we thank you for all the ways you bring yourself to us, all the ways you show yourself to us, and even in times when we're separated physically from one another, we can call, we can text, we can be in touch, and we can remember, we can pray for one another. And I ask that you draw us all together now, knowing that many of us will be watching right now, and others will be watching at different times, but your Spirit is really expandable, and you're with us wherever we are. In your name we pray. Amen. I looked at the lectionary and picked these sermons out several weeks ago, so it continues to amaze me how appropriate they are. The one today is from Ezekiel chapter 37, verses 1 to 14. And the title is Dry Bones. Now, some of you have heard this story before, but I'm going to ask you to just remember how I often put a different spin on things and just try to see this. But if you have kids that act like the Bible is not for them, tell them about this story. Sounds like it came right out of a movie like Star Wars or Star Trek, some of those things. From the Message Bible. God grabbed me, God's Spirit took me up and set me in the middle of an open plain strewn with bones. God led me around, and among them a lot of bones. There were bones all over the plain, dry bones, bleached by the sun. God said to me, Son of humanity, can these bones live? I said, Master God, only you know that. God said to me, prophesy over these bones. Dry bones, listen to the message of God. God the Master told the dry bones, watch this. I'm bringing the breath of life to you, and you'll come to life. I'll attach sinews to you, put meat on your bones, cover you with skin, and breathe life into you. You'll come alive, and you'll realize that I am God. I prophesied just as I'd been commanded. As I prophesied, there was a sound, a rustling sound. The bones moved and came together, bone to bone. I kept watching. Sinews formed, then muscles on the bones, then skin stretched over them, but they had no breath in them. God said to me, prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, Son of humanity, tell the breath God the Master says, come from the four winds. Come, breath, breathe on these slain bones, breathe life. So I prophesied just as he commanded me. The breath entered them and they came alive. They stood on their feet, a huge army. Then God said to me, Son of humanity, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Listen to what they're saying. Our bones are dried up. Our hope is gone. There is nothing left of us. Therefore prophesy. Tell them, God the Master says, I'll dig up your graves and bring you out alive, O my people. Then I'll take you straight to the land of Israel. When I dig up graves and bring them out of my people, you'll realize that I am God. I'll breathe my life into you and you'll live. Then I'll lead you straight back to your land, and you'll realize that I am God. I've said it, and I'll do it. God's decree. Could you see some of that picture? Can you go sci-fi enough to see what maybe Ezekiel was seeing? It's really interesting because Ezekiel and God's people at that time were in a really hopeless situation. Kind of like what some of us may be feeling. some of these days. He was called to be a prophet to people that had been in exile for 600 miles away from home for many, many years. They were refugees, camping in a desert area with just a sluggish river going by. Can you feel the oppression and the depression? It's amazing how God can find us in even the worst of places, the worst of situations, because God still shows up. And he talks about the places here that he will take the people, but first he had to take Ezekiel to this place. And it's really strange places God will take you. If you really want to follow God, you really want to listen to God, be prepared. Because it's kind of like the Dr. Seuss book, all the places we will go. Being a Jewish leader, this scene would have been really scary to Ezekiel because Jewish leaders were not supposed to go anywhere near a dead body. Now he's looking over at a whole field full of them. That's just scary in itself. And they weren't just bones. Did you hear? They were dry bones bleached by the sun. Death Valley. And then God asked him the strangest question. He says, "Son of humanity, can these bones live?" Now there's a real debate on what Ezekiel's answer meant. Because it either meant, "Are you kidding me?" Or, "Yeah, God, you can do that." What he says is, "God, only you know that." Do you ever hear the phrase, "only God knows"? I think that's funny because truly in many situations, only God knows. So Ezekiel's just kind of hedging his bets a little bit here. He doesn't want to say, "I don't trust you, God," but he's also in his mind saying, "I just don't know how that's going to happen." So then in the midst of all these bones laying out in this field, then God tells him to prophesy to them. Talking to dead, scattered, bleached bones. What a calling, what a ministry. That wouldn't work very good on TV, would it? And he says to speak to them. Now, I don't see any dead bones laying around here, thank you. We may see some other dead features. Anyhow, we don't see any dead bones laying around here. But some of us, if you were sitting here today, some of you would be sitting here really bored. Not sure why you came. Not sure what's going on. Some of you might come in just a bit detached. I told him I'd go to church with him. I told her I'd go to church with him. And maybe not dried up and dead, but definitely not totally present. And then as Ezekiel begins to prophesy to them, things start happening. The bones just didn't suddenly come from a bone to a full human being. Did you hear that? There was a process. And we forget there's a process in our growth and development. There's a process in our human body development. There's a process in learning whatever job you've ever learned. There's a process in your walk with the Lord. And this is really exemplified in here when it starts out with the process. And first it says he's going to attach the sinews. Sinews are like those stringy things that hold your bones together, okay? Those connectors. What connects us? What makes us community, even though we're all in our own homes and places? Sinews. Puts out sinews there, things to connect us. And then it says to put meat on those bones. That sustenance. That padding around the bones. The organs. The organization. What makes us feel more than just a bunch of bones connected by YouTube? What's that connection? And then covered in skin. That's really good. Can you imagine if these people were just left with bones and muscles? But there's something that pulls it together. Something that covers, gives it function, gives it presence. But when all that happened, there still was a problem. Because there was no breath. There was no life. The parts come all together, but they're just people. Bodies. But then God says, "I'm not finished yet." Prophesy to them. Tell them to breathe. And God's breath went in them, just like at creation. And then when he looked the next time, there was a whole army standing there. Doesn't say how they got the armor and the clothes and all that, but there's a whole army standing there. They needed God's breath, like at creation. And it's interesting here because he calls the breath from the four directions. To me, for the first time ever, that spoke to me of inclusivity. That God's Spirit can come from all different corners, all different places, and end up giving us life. And these armies rose up strong. Now, he's telling this to people, remember, we're 600 miles from home, refugees, exiled. And God doesn't stop with just this cute picture, this strange picture, this dynamic little movie. God says, that's for you folks. That's for you folks. I'm going to bring you all back to life. He promises the same renewal to Israel that he talked about with these bones. And that same gift of renewal is possible for us. Yes, possible for us as a church, but I believe possible for us as a country and a world as we deal with all this coronavirus. It's not going to be like this forever. One of my favorite sayings, now is not for forever. Pull it back together. And he promises his people, he says, I'll give you breath and you'll live. And we know now that that breath did come, and those people did come back and form the nation of Israel. It's a sure promise. I'm funny about promises. Don't promise me and not do it. It really ruins our relationship. If you're not going to do it, don't promise. And God sort of stomps God's foot, hits the pulpit if God had a pulpit, and said, I've said it, I'll do it. When I taught in Christian schools, a lot of people had the typical black King James Bible. A lot of them had these little label makers. And it would say, the Bible said it, I believe it, that settles it. In a lot of ways, that does have to be truth. We have to stand on the truth of God's word, the truth of God's message to us, and believe that it's really going to happen, even when it doesn't look like it. Think about Ezekiel talking to all these dry bones. He said, okay, I'll do it because you said to do it, God. That makes any sense to me. Imagine his face when these things started coming together. So my question that goes along with this really cool story is, what's dead in your life? What's dead in my life? Are there some things that have actually gotten down to the bare, bleached, dry bones? Are there dreams and hopes we've had that may never come to fruition? Are there things that are maybe missing a little life, even though the action's still there? There's times when we just get up and put one foot in front of the other because that's what we're supposed to do, but there's no joy and no life in it. I believe just as God blew life into those bones, God can blow life into our dead parts. God can blow life into our dreams that haven't been fulfilled yet, to our callings that haven't been fulfilled yet. God's not finished with MCC of Blue Ridge or a lot of these other churches around here. It's really weird to drive around and see big old churches with empty parking lots. But God's not finished with those people because the church is not the building. The church is not the parking lot. The church is those of us who love God, who believe in Jesus, who are scattered all over the place. And God's giving us that meat, giving us that skin, giving us that life. So I encourage you this week, we've all got too much time to think, but think what's dead and open yourself to let God's breath blow in. I hope, as I've mentioned a couple of times, that when it comes time for communion in your home, even in your car, wherever you are, you'll find something to share in this meal. One of my clergy friends showed her at-home communion. It was a little cracker, and it was a little cup of, which may have been white grape juice. And that's what she was going to be sharing in communion. And that was just as true to this moment as the things we have here on the altar. As I've said many times in many places, it's not the thing, it's the Spirit. It's the breath of God that comes with it. And on the night before Jesus was crucified, he met in a room with a lot of people who loved him, who loved God, and who were following him. And as he looked at the elements on the table that day, things that were just part of their Seder meal, he took them and gave new meaning to them. He lifted bread to heaven, he gave thanks for it, he blessed it, and he broke it. And he said, "This is my body, broken for you. Take and eat of it, each of you." In the same manner, he took a cup from the table. And he lifted it to heaven, and he gave thanks for it, and he blessed it. He said, "This is my blood, poured out for you, a sign of a new and everlasting covenant, a covenant that promises forgiveness of all sins." And every time we gather for this meal, we're reminded of that total job description, that Christ has died, Christ is risen, and Christ is coming again. Hallelujah. Loving God, bless those elements here on this table. Bless the elements, whatever people are using at this time for communion. May we sense your presence, your love, your connection. In your name we pray. Amen. Christ's body broken that we might be whole. The love of God shed abroad in all our hearts. God bless you. Be in touch with us. Call me if you don't have my phone number. Private message me and I'll probably give it to you. Text, message, Facebook. Reach out, not just to me, but to each other. Because somebody who sits near you is wondering how you're doing. You may be wondering about something else. So be in touch. Let God's love surely fall on us in these special times. In your name we pray and give you thanks. Amen.